conversation. That's why I'm going to welcome to the stage Nathan from Euphoria, co-founder and CEO. Nathan is one of those rare builders who actually understands the dark forest of crypto from the inside. He's the guy who created Salmonella, who you may be familiar with, the legendary honeypot contract that turned the tables on sandwich traders and made $250,000 by wrecking predators. Before that, he founded Local CoinSwap, a P2P exchange that became a lifeline for people in countries where traditional crypto access was impossible. And now he's building Euphoria, a mobile-first derivatives platform that's trying to make trading feel less like a Bloomberg terminal and more like a game. They've raised $7.5 million. They're building on Mega ETH, and their Tapathon competition kicks off today. So delighted to welcome to the show Nathan for the first time. Great to have you with us. How are you doing, Nathan?
Hey, everyone. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Very, very excited to get into the tap trading, get into the product. I know Legendary you've been working with over some time, and we'll talk about the product, the game, and how you're hoping that that gets kind of taken up by people shortly. But just to get into a little bit of history first and set the scene, Legendary was telling me about this Salmonella stuff before the show. This is fascinating. So what would the audience need to know here about what you guys were up to, I think in 2021, where you're kind of creating this honeypot contract, exploiting sandwich traders? What was actually going on there? How did you do that? And how did you get into that?
Yeah, so I mean, I had a little bit of a storied background. Like I kind of came into crypto randomly after doing a bunch of other failed businesses. But the first thing I built in crypto was Local CoinSwap, the peer-to-peer exchange, as you said. So I was learning to program while building that exchange. And as part of the coding, I built the wallet system. So I'd worked with a bunch of different cryptocurrencies. And as part of like building the systems, I was just kind of a little bit more aware of what was going on sort of on chain. Like I was monitoring on chain activity. And sometime after launching Local CoinSwap, I started noticing strange transactions on Ethereum. No one was really talking about it, but I could see there was a lot of financial flows with the transactions. And I started decompiling the transactions to see what they were doing. And I saw that, okay, these transactions are starting with some amount of money and ending up with more of the same amount of money, which is kind of weird to me. And suddenly I realized, hey, this is arbitrage trading. And it was kind of a light bulb moment for me. Hey, there's all this money on the table. No one really knows about this yet. It's very early and I have the skills to execute on this. So I just went full time into arbitrage MEV trading. And arbitrage is kind of the mainstay of what I was doing, but I was always exploring sort of like different strategies and different opportunities that were on chain. And one thing that always excited me was there's a PvP sort of nature of MEV trading. So you can't just go and like hack a crypto protocol, but you can kind of exploit other people's bots. It's a little bit like a high stakes poker game where, you know, everyone's trying to rug each other. If you make $1, someone else has lost that dollar. And one of the strategies that was always very controversial in MEV was sandwich trading, because sandwich trading kind of has a victim. Like the user is executing a swap on chain and they specify some slippage for the swap. And so they consent to one set of rules where the slippage is kind of like a price that they'll pay if the market moves against them. But then when they actually swap, a different set of rules is kind of imposed on them where a sandwich trader is actually like basketing their transaction between two other transactions and extracting all of their slippage, which ends up being kind of like an execution fee. So there's definitely like a victim in this situation, and sandwich traders are kind of disliked by retail users and often by some MEV traders as well. So I was always looking for kind of like opportunities to get one back on sandwich traders. And it's sort of early on in the days of sandwich trading when the mining operation Ethermine had spun up a sandwich block, and they were actually putting sandwich transactions directly into each block on the Ethereum blockchain. And yeah, I just saw an opportunity, which is sort of how the Salmonella attack came about. I noticed that there was a bunch of random tokens on their contract address. There's like tiny little bits of tokens. I thought, why is it if they're executing trades, there's these tiny amounts of tokens that are left in their trading contract? And I realized there must be some kind of like discrepancy with the way that they were running the maths. And yeah, a long answer short, I essentially devised a honeypot contract that would trick the maths that they were using to execute the sandwich trades and cause them to actually give me their money. So I launched I called it Salmonella because it's like the worst thing that you can possibly get in a sandwich. And yeah, so I launched the Salmonella, and it not only rugged Ethermine, but it rugged like every sandwich trader on Ethereum basically at the same time. So I was expecting to just drain all of the money from the Ethermine contract, but when I checked back in after taking like a break, I was like, wow, I've just literally like drained all of the sandwich bots in the market. Obviously, everyone sort of quickly adjusted their strategies to try and protect against Salmonella, and it became a little bit of a cat and mouse game. So I did a few more variants of the strategy. Other people executed Salmonella strategies of their own. Yeah, it was quite a fun time for a while. I'm still trying to live down the moniker of the Salmonella guy. I will say I am sort of glad that I got out when I did. You might have seen recently there was this like big court case in the US where these two brothers had exploited a relay on Ethereum and got like $24 million. And their defense in court was like, oh, we were just doing Salmonella. Nathan did it and he didn't get in trouble. So what we're doing is legal.
Gosh.
Thankfully, the US government didn't like really buy that argument. They said, no, what Nathan did was actually different. But you know, obviously I was like quite nervous while all of this was going on. Yeah, I think that's kind of the backstory of Salmonella.
I absolutely love that backstory. And you mentioned the poker analogy, and you said, you know, this is a game of high stakes poker. It's set under the table, intending to take all of my chips. Maybe next time they'll be the ones walking home with all of my chips. That's the game. Is this still true in DeFi? Is this still a view that you're partially upholding? And how has DeFi changed since then, given that we just touched on where DeFi is going in the last news before we went into the interview?
Yeah, I still view a lot of life like a sort of high stakes poker game. That might be kind of my psychology because I'm very risk loving. I think a lot of people will say that they're risk loving, but I really have just taken a lot of risk. I try and be calculated with the risk, but I am sort of a risk orientated person. And I mean, that's the mentality that I think trading will always have. It's always kind of a high stakes game. You know, Citadel, big trading firms are playing with like millions or even billions of dollars, and they have big losses, right? Like things go wrong. It's definitely an attitude that I've taken into sort of business. I do see business as a game of like taking large risks. Obviously, you have to have a lot of conviction in the risks that you take. You have to communicate to investors which risks that you're taking with their money, but your business is sort of like still a game of risk. I know that, you know, some people might have a bit of a more collaborative approach to DeFi and building things, but I guess, yeah, I'm a very sort of like risk on person, and I bring that high stakes poker attitude into everything that I do.
That's fascinating. I've realized I was never like that myself. And then I got into this industry, trading and investing and doing that stuff. And then when I went back to play games, like with the family, my brain was doing all this stuff that I'd never known before, like analyzing the risk reward, about playing Monopoly. And suddenly it was all over my life and I couldn't put the genie back in the bottle.
Did you find that things stopped becoming fun if there was no like money involved? So like, okay, poker's fun, but if someone wants to play Monopoly, you're asking, well, can we gamble on this somehow?
I didn't quite get to that point, but I did find that everything became risk reward. Like everything became risk reward in some degree. And I actually think I was better off for it because my brain started to think through things in ways that I felt untrained before. But to that point, Legendary is going to take us into the product conversation in a bit, but how do you then, you're clearly very sophisticated in the market and have applied this way of thinking a great deal throughout various avenues of business. How are you just looking at the broader crypto market at the moment? Like, obviously we've been through a challenging time most recently after some quite euphoric highs. How are you looking at the whole crypto landscape before we zoom into Euphoria and what you guys are building?
I'm very long-term orientated in crypto. I mean, I first got into crypto in 2011, and I had a lot of conviction then that it was going to change the world and be a mainstay of the economy. And you know, all this time later, I'm still really bullish about the future of crypto. I think that there's going to be lots of ups and downs, but I just can't really get sucked into whatever the market is like right now. I think that that's just sort of short-term thinking. So I'm just always taking bets that are playing out over many years. And I don't think at any point since 2011, my bullish, optimistic outlook for years ahead has changed. So I still feel super bullish about where we're at with crypto and where we're going. And it's just how markets work. They're very volatile. I'm sure next year and the year after and the year after that, there's going to be intensely bearish periods. It's just the nature of the game.
Love it. Look, we could talk about markets and that history part for the rest of the interview, and it's super fascinating, but also want to get into the Euphoria side of things. And you had this post back in January where you said, initially the vision for Euphoria started as a design exercise, saying if we had magic powers to make everything else possible, what is the most dopamine-inducing trading experience which could possibly exist? So what did you discover as part of this design exercise, and what is Euphoria?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different origin stories for Euphoria. There's lots of different ways that it came together, but definitely a key component was this first principles thinking around, if trading was a consumer experience, what would it look like if we just optimized for the experience? This was a revelation that I had when I was researching perpdex designs, and I just suddenly understood fundamentally almost everyone on Hyperliquid UI or any other perpdex UI is losing money. Why are they there? And they're actually they're having an experience. There's an experience of trading derivatives. Like when you're clicking around on charts, when you're listening to podcasts about the market, when you're doing technical analysis, when you're in Discord groups with your friends, when you're sharing what you're doing on social media, when you're in a position, there's just emotion involved, like euphoria, like highs, lows, social connections, feelings of status. And really, derivatives is a consumer experience. So once I had that realization, then the next question was like, okay, how do we just, from first principles, forget about all of the underlying infrastructure and just build the most fun trading experience that we possibly can? And I actually just disappeared for a while and basically locked myself in a room. And I spent about a month or so just sketching out different ideas for what a trading experience could look like. And I did a lot of research during this time. So I went and used a whole bunch of perps platforms, options platforms. I went to the casino and I gambled for the first time. I played a bunch of mobile games. I played a bunch of video games that I'd never played before. I explored sort of classic board and card games, just sort of really wide research, and also a bunch of reading as well, like books like Addiction by Design, different books about UX optimization, building games, and so on. And I just was sketching out a bunch of things. And one of the thinkings that I had was, okay, if we could only put like one thing on a screen, what would that one thing be? And I realized after a while that if you just have like a grid and you can kind of click boxes and unclick boxes, there's just something satisfying about that. Like even if there's no price line, it's just like a satisfying feeling to kind of click. And I was like, okay, so we got this. And then if we added one more element, what would that be? Okay, I think that would be like a price line. And then if we added another element, I could saw like sort of a number going up and down of like the current price. And that was literally the first principles thinking of like just adding one thing to the screen at a time. There are a bunch of different sort of similar ideas that I came up with. And when I had a few of them, I went and started shopping them around. So I vibe coded some really simple proof of concepts. I even showed people sort of diagrams of different things. And tap trading, which we're building at Euphoria, that was the one that resonated with people. They just kind of said, wow. We did have a few others that people liked, but I think another part of my thinking was, I can't vibe code this. I need to pick something that is a little bit of an engineering challenge and is kind of net new. And tap trading just ticked all of those boxes. So yeah, that's kind of the origin story here.
Gotcha. And as part of this exploration, you also at some point arrived at the Euphoria manifesto and the Euphoria thesis, and you have a line in there that might make some people a bit uncomfortable. It reads, "Hyperspeculation isn't a problem to solve; it's a design challenge to optimize." What do you mean by that, and what are the implications of this thesis?
Yeah, I mean, I'm currently in the process of sort of writing a long manifesto on exactly this topic, but I don't see hyper speculation or just like building sort of like addictive product experiences as like something that is necessarily bad. I think it's something that there's a lot of retail demand for. I think that it's something that people want and find very entertaining. And I think we're just moving into a world of hyper speculation. I think we're moving into a world where the focus is on just reducing general harms in society. Like, okay, how do we structure society so everyone's kind of all right? And then once we've done that, how do we just make sure that everyone's having as much fun as possible? And I think people have the same demand for entertainment in finance that they do in other areas of life. And I guess the thought experiment here would be like, what if you just took all of the risk out of finance? What would the world look like? I think it would be a horrible world. It'd just be like dry, right? You'd have no social mobility. Like all social mobility involves some degree of speculation, and people can choose where they want to be on that curve. But if you took speculation away from us and you made society in general completely risk adverse, I just think it would be a world that no one would want to live in. So I think it's important to abandon hypocrisy here. Honestly, most things that people are building anywhere in DeFi rely on hyper speculation. Like if there's no gambling and speculation, no L1 is investable, no L2 is investable, RV is not investable, Uniswap is not investable. All of these projects, they live on a rising tide of increasing retail demand for speculation. And I think it's hypocritical to act like we're uncomfortable with speculation while building all of these products and building companies that rely on increasing amounts of speculation. So I guess I think the approach I'm taking here is a more honest and authentic one in respects to reality.
Love it. B, did you want to get in here? If not, I'm gonna keep it going.
I wanted to ask an important question on product. When I've thought through about Euphoria, you said this is a hyper speculation, or hyper speculation is inherent in maybe the industry, and maybe it's inherent in Euphoria as well. When I'm thinking through what it might be like to play this game, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going to be playing it because they're super interested. How have you, like when you run the models through it, to what extent are you conscious that people can't lose everything too quickly? How have you thought through the gameplay where, if they're going to play the game and they're going to be hyper speculating, they need to be winning a certain amount. You don't want to have too high churn, or is churn part of the business model and you think that you'll be able to work through it somehow? I'm curious on how you think on churn and how much they're speculating, how much people are losing. Have you run models on this? What's the kind of expectation here?
Yeah, a lot of people have tried to vibe code imitations to Euphoria, but they all have the same problem that you come and you just lose your money basically instantly.
Yeah,
so
that's why when I'm running it through my model, that's kind of what I would be wondering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the focus on our market making is actually ensuring that like generally the return to player is quite high. Obviously, there's going to be some sharps who sort of like beat us and make a profit, but we want sort of like the average return to player to obviously be under 100%. Otherwise, the market makers are like sort of all losing money and the experience wouldn't exist. But yeah, you can break down any experience involving finance into a couple of different metrics. Return to player is one of them. Like out of every $100 that a person is spending on this experience, what on average do they get back? And then like what's the average session length as well from any given amount of money? So like the average time played per dollar. So we are trying to ensure that the return to player is as like high as possible on average with the way that the market making functions. So initially we are the market maker, but we're building that out into an ecosystem of market makers. And we expect when you have multiple market makers competing for the flow, it drives the return to player quite high. I think anything that you get over 95% for return to player on average, some people will win more, some people will lose, is a very fun experience that will keep people coming back. And then obviously you want to sort of maximize the average session length per dollar spent as well. I think those are the two metrics that we're thinking about here in terms of the market making, and also that feed into churn and just generally how much fun people are having.
Which is probably not too dissimilar from how Hyperliquid will be thinking about how they are building out their platform, because ultimately you have in-house market making, you have trading fees, and you're building both out the game and the rules for it. And you're obviously building Euphoria on Mega ETH. Just launched mainnet a week ago. Sub-millisecond latency, 100K TPS, all of that technical infrastructure. Why is that specifically important for Euphoria?
The faster the chain is, the faster the Oracle updates are, the more effective our market making is. And you need really responsive and effective market making to give people a good experience and a high return to player. So there's not really any other chain right now that we could have done this on other than Mega ETH. They've been wonderful to work with. We've had a lot of collaboration with them on specs and sort of like the blockchain infrastructure in general. And yeah, this has really been a collaborative effort between Euphoria and Mega ETH. I don't think we could have done this without them.
Gotcha, fair enough. Look, before we get into the Tapathon, I want to take it slightly into a bit of a different direction. We did speak about your background, your deep understanding of MEV, of DeFi. I know because we are speaking in private a lot about AI, about agents. I know that you set up your open clawbot as well. Will agents have a place in Euphoria? Will there be agentic trading? Will agents be able to maybe even compete in the Tapathon or experiment with Euphoria once it is actually also live on mainnet?
Yeah, I would love for agents to have a place in Euphoria. And if anyone wants to use a agent to compete in the Tapathon, they're more than welcome. I'd be absolutely happy to support that, even if it involves building things on our end. I really think that the future will involve working with, and I'm not actually that bullish on, like I am kind of bullish on AI, but I'm not like an AI maxi. And I still think that the future is agents. And you just have to accept that reality and build around it. So yeah, short answer, yes.
Love it. You mentioned the Tapathon as well. Give us the details. It is starting today. What do we need to know on it? How can we participate?
Yeah, so it's going live today. So we have maximum 5,000 places. I think it's filling out quite fast. I'm not sure how many places there are left, but maybe if you scout around online, there'll be some invite codes floating around somewhere if you don't yet have one. But yeah, so 5,000 traders will compete starting today. The competition opens shortly, and it will run for 2 weeks. Everyone will be competing on P&L. So you'll start off with a set amount of money, and then every day you'll get more money if you sort of run out. So you can come back to your starting place. And then at the end of the competition, the winner will get flown to London. They get to take this Rolex off my wrist and have a cigar with me. There'll be some other prizes as well. Generally, this is kind of like a stress test of our systems. So having 5,000 people is quite a lot of active users. It gives us a chance to polish the market making prior to launch. So I guess we see this as kind of a big stress test that we're paying for our market making. And then we expect to launch shortly after the end of this competition. So this is kind of like the final tweaking before we go live.
Love it. And you go for it.
No, you go.
And once you go live and we go a couple months into the future, what is success looking like for Euphoria in 2026? Is it the volume? Is it user number? Is it having optimized the RTP and session length that you were speaking about? Like, what are the key metrics that you will be looking at?
I mean, the classic metric would be like our sort of daily user growth and general customer retention. I think when you're succeeding at product, like there's a vibe to it. Like, when you're succeeding or fail. Like when you're hitting exponential growth and users just coming from everywhere, and you're just trying to keep up in terms of like supporting them with your infrastructure, and that's a wave for me that is like every bit as satisfying as the feeling of making money trading. Like, when you're winning, when the feeling of winning when building a product. So I'd say success in a few months' time just looks like exponential user growth. People love Euphoria. They're having a good time and they're coming back.
Two-part question as we close out here, looking into the future a little bit, Nathan. First question is, who do you think will be best at this? Like, what do you think the skills are to be the best? Obviously, you said that you think that there will be some sharps who will maybe figure out some systems or figure out the gameplay to some extent. In all games, some people are better than other people. Is there a way to think about that? Who do you think will be best at this?
I mean, there will definitely be sharps, and there will be certainly a cat and mouse game between sharps and the market making. So market makers are human, right? They run their quants, they run strategies. Some people are really good on the other side as takers. There will be people who come to Euphoria, they start tapping and they're making money. They figure out the intricacies of how the market making is working and they're printing, and it becomes a little bit of a cat and mouse game where the market makers have to adjust their strategies.
Interesting.
The
Okay.
people have groups that I would expect to win, other than just like smart people in general. But you know, it could be you if you're listening. So come and play.
Okay, I feel like that's a nice little insight there, thinking through the way the market makers are operating, and that's part of the game. And then final thing, Nathan, just thinking about what's coming in the next few months, like what are you most excited about?
What am I most excited to build in Euphoria?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of directions that we can go with this tap trading experience. So we could build more experiences, or we could just go really deep into tap trading. There's a bunch of social features that we want to add. There's a bunch of new order types and sort of features on the interface that we want to add. To some degree, we're going to let the market tell us what they want to see on Euphoria. We could support new assets. We could, yeah, there's all kinds of things that we could build. So I think after launch, the first step will be to sort of gather a lot of data on how everyone is using the platform and what they want from us, and then use that to decide sort of what direction to go in next. But I'm just really excited because we just have so many different things that we can add in all of these different directions that I don't honestly know yet exactly what Euphoria will look like in, say, a year's time.
Very, very exciting. So it sounds like this tap trading competition is going to take place now, is going to be maybe the first set of data points you're going to get a real stress test for you. So looking forward to see that and participate. If you guys want to follow along, obviously it's at Euphoria_Fi is the main account to follow along. And Nathan's personal account is at Nathan Worsley _. So that's where you can follow along on the journey. The tap trading competition starts today, and so maybe there's some referral codes that you can find online still. Nathan, any final thoughts? Any final message to give to the audience before we close out and before you guys start the competition?
I'd say the final message is that Euphoria is an open community. We are building something that we want it to be fun. We want you to have fun playing on it. So come and join the community. If you have any ideas of how we can improve this, let us know. You're very welcome. You know, we want this to be a community effort. It's literally called Euphoria because it's an effort to spread joy and fun throughout the world. So yeah, I just say my final message is just come be part of our community and come have fun.
Sounds fun. Thanks so much for joining us, Nathan. Really, really appreciate it. We will be looking forward to seeing how it goes. So thanks so much for joining us. Guys, that is our show for today. It's been great to have Nathan from Euphoria with us. Just a reminder, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time, live on X video, YouTube, and you can catch us on Apple and Spotify as well. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow with another great interview tomorrow too. We'll see you then. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.